Welcome back to Laptop Seniors. We are always thrilled to have you back with us. Today we're back in Lisbon. Yeah, I know we bounce around a lot. But we're going to be satisfying the questions that we get repeatedly, which is about housing. You guys all want to know the perfect place to retire, whether you can afford it, whether the housing will be suitable. And so we're going to answer a lot of those questions today about Lisbon. We'll be talking with the CEO of Smith & Adams Properties, Furkan Ismail. Furkan was great about answering our many questions, and at the same time, it's a very busy office. He obviously couldn't stop work for the day. So please excuse the voices that you hear in the background. You don't need to understand what they're saying. Those are just other people working in the offices.
So Furkan, a couple questions that sort of pertain to anybody who's coming here or anywhere else in the world. First thing is, can they afford it? So I was looking up salaries, the average salaries here in Portugal, and you tell me if they're right, because a lot of times you get stuff off the net, and it may or may not be correct. Generally speaking, it seemed like an average sort of middle-class salary for a person here in Portugal, not Lisbon, but in Portugal itself, would be around 30,000 euro a year. Does that sound about right, or does it sound low or sound high?
30,000 euro a year.
Yeah.
For an average person.
Yeah.
Well, our monthly minimum wage is going to be increased for 820 euros, if I'm not wrong, on the next year. So now I think that the average, if you compare it to what is the minimum wage declared by the government and what is being paid by all the other employers in this case, should get you to an average of 1,200 a month. This gives you roughly way below the number that you should.
15,000 then?
Probably yes.
There, yeah.
Probably yes.
So this next one is probably totally wrong, because what I was catching was 37.55 a month, which is roughly 45,000 euros. So that would be really high then for Lisbon, for Lisbon proper.
Depends on what professions we are looking at. But for those numbers, I would say that we are talking about a specific doctor in a specific field with a lot of years of experience, or someone in a very high position on a company. This is high end, yes.
Got it. Okay. It's interesting, those numbers, because when I was looking at them, the two numbers 30 and 45 are roughly what somebody would get on U.S., not Canadian for sure, but U.S. Social Security. If you're just on the regular one, you're going to come out of around 30, or if you're going to be getting the max, you're going to come out around 45. I just thought it would be an easy mental transition from somebody from North America if they were thinking about here. But so it's going to be even lower then. What would you say an average person here? I mean, you said 12, somewhere around 15. So a typical middle class person here, what do you think the family would make? And obviously they would make a living here,
I would say double that amount. So the amount that we were saying in the beginning, around 30,000, would be an average for a family. 30 to 40,000 a year.
Got it. And maybe that, they weren't clear, they just said average salary, but that could have been a household income, which is now kind of what you're saying. 30,000 for a household?
For a household, yes.
Yeah, two people, okay. For those of you who are watching, obviously you have an idea of, what it's going to cost you to live here, to live like a typical person who's born and raised here in Portugal, in middle class. Yes. Okay.
What communities do the expats who come here typically settle in around Lisbon itself? Are there certain neighborhoods? And we have a map which we will put on the screen.
So yes, the typical expat settles in two main areas of Lisbon. The Lisbon district, let's say this way. So you have Lisbon, central Lisbon, and we go into specifics next. And you have the area of Cascais. Cascais is a very typical area for expats, okay, especially for Americans, people who like to retire on a very nice area with a beach lifestyle, nice restaurants, quiet life at the same time, a kind of like a village style living on the city, okay, because it becomes part of the city. And you have the other kind of expats I would say, more young that bring small children or just come here with a girlfriend or just got married or they are even single, they settle normally in the center of Lisbon. That's where they settle. Lisbon is not a very big city, so even the center of Lisbon is quite small. The areas that we normally reckon that the expats would choose as their main preference would be around where we are right now, which is Avenida da Liberdade, Bairro to close to the river, so you have the areas of Belém as well. You have Bairro Alto, you have nearby the castle. Some young people like it nearby the castle, which is in Alfama, because it's a a very active nightlife as well.
That would be the tourist area, though.
It would be the tourist area. Yes, I would say the tourist area is where would they look for, because the city is a small city, so the access between one point to the other is quite easy. Of course, always near to the river would be a good solution. Okay, so you can run in the morning, you have nice restaurants as well. This is the areas that I would say that people would look for in their first position. Then after a while, after they know the city quite well, then they might decide to go a bit close to the suburbs or not, depends on where they identify themselves better. And it depends also on the nationality.
If you were going to be in those areas, so let's just center on Cascais for a second. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Cascais? Oh, good. Okay. Hey, well, actually,
You say as an expat would say.
We're going there. Oh, really? How would you, for here, how would you actually say it?
Cascais.
Cascais?
Cascais, yes. Without the accent, but yeah,
Cascais.
that's it.
Okay.
Or very close.
We're going there tomorrow, actually, to see it for all the reasons that you
Let me
mentioned.
ask you something. Have you been to the Algarve?
Yes, although
Long ago,
17
yes.
years ago.
Yeah, Algarve is a very famous area for expats, especially from the UK to retire.
Yeah.
What Cascais brings to you is a very similar vibe to the Algarve in Lisbon. So it's not that quiet, it's not that seasonal, but at the same time you have more high-end people, Portuguese high-end people living there, high-end networking people from some other countries as well, okay? That gives you the possibility to have the lifestyle that you find in the Algarve in the city of Lisbon.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, we were in Albufeira
So would
when we were there.
Albufeira.
Yeah.
Yes.
So would the average person here be able to afford living in Cascais?
Yeah, well, like, what would it take for a two-bedroom? If they were going to rent a two-bedroom there, roughly.
I would say that in Cascais, for you to get a very nice two-bedroom with very nice conditions, would go roughly around 1,800 to 2,000 a month.
2,000 a month. Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, and this is a two-bedroom apartment.
A two-bedroom apartment, an average apartment, not a very high-end apartment, not a very low-class apartment.
Right.
I would say roughly around those numbers.
Okay.
And
then buying a house there, do you?
or buying an apartment.
Well, when we're talking about rents in Portugal, for you to get the price of the house, normally calculate that the yield that they are being paid to the owners in this case is roughly 4%, 5%. So then you can calculate the kind of houses that you will meet for those ranges. Okay? I would say around 400 to 500,000 euros
Okay.
to purchase the apartment, 1,800 to 2,000 to rent the apartment.
Moving into the city now, sort of the same type of question, except now we're in the city in those areas that you mentioned, roughly the same, more or less, depending on where you are.
I would say roughly, in terms of rental, you can keep those numbers. In terms of purchasing the apartment, not really at the moment. As you know, the country, and especially the city of Lisbon, has kind of an issue with the delay of the licensing procedures from the council. So this brings that you don't have a lot of supply for the demand that already exists. This makes the famous crisis in residential properties that we have and that we have been hearing on the news, and a lot of expats. So the demand is quite high from the expat community and the Portuguese community to live in the city. I would not even say the city center, but you can also include the suburbs in this crisis. As you don't have a lot of supply for the people that are looking for it, the prices kind of increase a little bit. The city of Cascais is a bit bigger, so it's spread throughout the map. It's easier for people to move from one side to the other, and they would still be inside the city. So the prices can still be a bit more balanced than they are in Lisbon. Lisbon is a very tight city, it's a very small city. So if you don't offer the supply that the people need, the prices are actually going to increase, making the people who are living on those areas to go to the suburbs and so on, as you normally see in any capital city.
Could you explain what you mean by getting a license? Do you need a license to sell or buy a property?
Now, what I mean with licensing is, let's say that there is a developer that wants to build a residential building. All right. So for him to get the licensing procedure up until he gets it completed and sold, I would say that roughly we are counting 5 years,
Wow.
which is a lot of time.
Yeah, that's a long time.
5
yeah.
years.
It's a lot of time.
And that would be the same if we've seen a bunch of buildings where it looks like somebody has taken the building, totally gutted it, leaving the frame on the outside.
Yes.
And would that be the same 5-year thing?
Everywhere, especially in the historical areas,
Yeah.
like the area we are right now. And if you go closer to the river from here, so Terreiro do Passo, Rua dos Fanqueiros, so Santa Maria Maior is one of the parishes that I will point you on the map that actually is considered historical inside the city. So the licensing procedure there takes even more time.
Right, because it probably has to be to historical standards.
There are some details
Both
that
the
you need
same.
to be aware of.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming if somebody was to purchase property and then want to build a home on the property, that would be a similar situation.
Depends. So if you are buying a house, as long as you don't touch structure, the kind of licensing you need is different from building a building, or inside your house if you want to demolish a structural wall, so on. So if the idea is for you to buy a house and do some refurbishment inside, you just need to inform the council that you are going to do it. Okay? We call it also a licensing. We call it comunicação prévia. So it is a licensing. It takes much less time. I would say 2-3 months would be the average time to get a permit to do it.
Right, so that would be considered a renovation.
Yes, that would be a renovation. So you have construction and you have renovation. Renovation has separate rules as long as you don't touch structure. If you touch structure, so you are getting into the other side, which is licensing procedure. That takes a lot of time. Probably less if you do on a unit, probably more if you do on a building.
They were mentioning that you as a company take on and you manage property. So somebody buys a property from you, but they only want to be here. They're snowbirds. They only want to be here, probably just for the winter and rent it the rest of the time. So tell us about that and what's entailed with that and how hard it is and are there restrictions of doing that type of thing?
So on the property management side, you have two ways of getting the ROI on your property. One way is through short-term rental, and the other is through long-term rental. Long-term rental works exactly the same as everywhere else.
Would that be 12 months, 6 months? What's considered a long-term rental?
Long-term, it's 12 months plus.
12 months.
Okay. Anything below that and up until 60 days or 30 days, it's considered mid-term, and then you have the short-term. We tend to include the short-term and the mid-term on the same basket, and then we have the long-term on the other end, because the kind of management that is required on those two, it's different from what is required on a long-term tenant. So the long-term tenant works exactly the same here as it works anywhere in the world. So you find the tenant, you manage the bills, you charge a fee for the management you are doing, for issuing the slips and so on. So it's an easy process. Okay, but coming back to your question, that was, I have a property, I want to use it on the winter because it's very cold on my country, and I want to come to Portugal because it's very sunny, and I want to rent it out on the rest of the year. You have to do it through short-term or mid-term. Okay? Mid-term and short-term, they require a short-term license issued by the council of the city that you are located in. So we are talking about the city of Lisbon. The city of Lisbon needs to issue a permit for you to do short-term. Now we have a situation that the new laws that were introduced and approved last week suspend any kind of new issue of licensing for short-term permits up until Well, we don't have a proper date until when they are going to not issue any more licensing. What we know is that up until 2030, if I'm not wrong, 2030, they will revoke or reconsider all the other licensings that are already in place. So whoever owns a short-term license at the moment, it will be reviewed or revoked in 2030. But we still have a lot of time until there, right?
7 years then, right?
7 years
Yeah.
there.
But
Because-
what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is only if you already have an existing license are
Yes,
you
this is if
able
you
to
already
rent
have it.
your property.
And why is that? Because most of the councils on the country, they don't have proper regulation on the short term, or they don't have proper limits. It's still a bit an amateur business for both sides, for the council and even for the owners. So they need to regulate. They say that they need to regulate, that's why they put up these rules. In order to suspend it, regulate the market, and then put it up again. Or not, depending on what's happening in most cities in the world, they are actually canceling short-term licensing inside the cities. We hope that's not the case. Okay, based on the cards that we have on the table right now, this is what's going on. So if you want to issue a new licensing in Portugal, in Lisbon especially, you cannot issue a new one, except if you buy an apartment that is already with a management company.
It comes with it.
It comes with it.
Nice.
Again, the license cannot be transferred, right? But if the short-term company already owns the license together with the owner, and you keep that company to run your apartment, then you can continue doing short-term.
So so I'm clear, I think. So if Smith and Adams is managing a company, you hold the short-term license, not the.
No. So on Smith & Adams, we have two sides. We have the real estate side and the property management side. Talking on the property management side, let's say that you have an apartment before these rules, okay, that you had an apartment and we were managing that apartment from you, okay, and you had a license and the license was on both of our names, on your name and the company name, okay. If you want to sell the property together with the license, as long as the new owner works with us, we can change the co-owner of the license. We cannot change the full license. It doesn't make the business very pleasant for whoever is going to buy, because they will be stuck with the company, us or whoever else who owns the license together with the previous owner.
So if somebody is considering buying a residence here in Lisbon, in Portugal, and you would like to have a property that you would be able to rent when you're not here, you need to be sure that you are purchasing a property that is already licensed for rental. And you probably want to meet the management company that is going to manage the rental for you.
And run a due diligence on the permits that are there and the company that's doing it. Well, but this is one side. Then you have the midterm rentals. The midterm rentals actually allow you to rent the property probably without even a permit, as long as you rent it without, as long as you rent it as a normal tenant. Okay, so let's say that you have someone that you know from your country or from friends and family that says that I want to use your house for 6 months and I want to pay you for that use. You are legally allowed to do it.
Really?
Yes. If it comes directly from you, the platforms will not accept it without any kind of permit. And if the platforms do not accept it, it's going to be a bit hard for you to capture leads on clients that want to rent your apartment.
Yeah, you're not doing Airbnb for sure. That's
yes,
pretty much
it's kind of hard to do it without the platforms working for you.
Yeah.
But if you're doing long term on websites like Idealista and so on, or even with any kind of agency, if you are doing long term that way, you don't need any kind of permit. Okay? So long term works exactly as anywhere in the world. You advertise it, you rent it, and that's done. Now you have the middle part, which is if you have a family or friend that wants to use your house, pay you for that use, you are allowed to do it. Okay, you don't need a permit to rent the house on midterm. If you have it, perfect, but the platforms will not accept it because they will look at midterm the same way as they look at short term.
And would the management company still manage it in that situation?
Yes, we will manage it probably as a long-term tenant. This is the fees will be corresponding to the long-term tenants. Sometimes we also have leads from people who want to rent the apartments, not through platforms, but through direct contact or partnerships that we have in some other cities around the world, and want to rent the apartments for 1 month, up to 6 months, 7 months, and that we can allocate to the clients that we have on the management company. That's possible to do as well, but we cannot guarantee that the return and the amount of leads and the amount of interested clients will be the same as when we use the platform.
Sure, sure. Let's go
What
back-
percentage, sorry,
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
would you charge for management fees a percentage of what the rental rate is, or do you base that on the value of the property? How do you calculate?
So if we are talking about a long-term agreement, we charge one rent for the management throughout the
Like
year.
1 month rent?
1 month rent. Okay. If we are talking about the short term, our fee is 21% of the
21%.
invoiced amount.
Okay.
Yes. So we charge 21% of the invoiced amount. That's it. And then you have the commissions from the platforms and so on. This is directly with them. It's not included on the 21%. This is an extra. Anyway, the short term works much better and makes you a big return compared to the other one, as long as you can get the permit.
As long as you have the permit, yeah, that could be a big one. As long as we're on costs, I'm curious now. Say you buy a 400,000 euro apartment, okay, through you. The closing costs, the taxes, the real estate fees, and all of that combined, is there a rough percentage what that usually kicks it up? Like in some countries, it's just like you can kind of ballpark, it'll jack the price up to 15% more, or 10 or 12 or something. Is there a
Let me break down the costs to you.
Yeah, okay.
Probably it's easier. So we have two taxes that you have to pay whenever you buy a property in Portugal. You have the municipal tax, which is called the IMT, what we call it here. There is not a fixed amount. It is based on the price of the property. It goes from 2% up to 7.5%. Okay, this is variable between. This is very varied compared to the price of the property that you are buying. You have a simulator, and it gets from 2 to 7.5. Then you have the stamp duty. The stamp duty in Portugal is standard 0.8%.
That's for the whole country.
That's for the whole country. It doesn't change. Even the municipal tax doesn't change from parish to parish or council to council. It is fixed from the government, but it varies according to the price of the property. Okay. Then you have the notary costs that roughly go from 1,000 to 1,500 euros. Okay. And if you are using any lawyer to do the due diligence, you can also include that cost, but roughly costs you, I would say, 2,000 to 3,000 euros, depending on the lawyer that you are using.
In your opinion, using a lawyer is like you really should, or it's so-so, or what?
Well, in Portugal, it's always preferable to use a lawyer, all right? Because you have the responsibility fully on their side and they are responsible for it. We as a company, we run the same due diligence on our side as any other lawyer would run. First of all, because for us to list any kind of properties, we have to run that due diligence. Secondly, it is mandatory that that due diligence is covered before you going to deed as well, or before you going to registration. Otherwise, the notary will not accept to proceed with the registration. But there are some certain points that some agents probably are not so much aware of, or some companies are not so much aware of. And for that reason, you might need a lawyer, which is checking if there are any tenants that were not declared before, any problems on the council related to illegal constructions that you have done inside or the previous owner have done inside. All of that information is public. You just need to go to the places and collect those informations. We do it on the company. Some companies don't do it. We run that due diligence part of the commission that we charge. Okay. And then you have that extra cost, which is not, in Portugal, is not corresponded to the buyer. The seller pays the commission.
Right.
That was our next question.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
our next
yeah.
question.
So in Portugal, the seller pays the commission. On average, is 5% plus VAT, 23%. But that is covered by the seller, never the buyer. So in Portugal, it's not really common for the buyer to pay any commission as long as they are using a buyer agent. If they are using a buyer agent, which is not very common in Portugal, but you already have it, then they will have a fee associated to it.
So it wouldn't be a situation of the realtors would split the 5%.
Yes, there will be.
Oh, they would split it.
If it's 5% or if it's on something very exclusive, sometimes it can go up to 4%, then we have to split it, unless agreed otherwise.
That's great information that you're giving
really
us.
specific. Love that financial guy. You like that?
Yes.
It's good. Let's talk about visas a little bit. I know from talking the last time we were here that you guys handle purchases for golden visas, and I saw yesterday about the D7 visa for retirees. That would appear. Tell me if I'm wrong. That would appear to be there's some number that you need to have for monthly income that's guaranteed. If you have that, and then you hit the other criteria, you're good to get a visa here and move here to retire. Is that basically sort of it?
So the main difference between a D7 and the golden visa is the time that you will have to mandatory spend on the country on a year. Okay. On a D7 would be 180 days. Okay. On a golden visa would be 7 days. This is the big difference.
So you can have a golden visa and only be here 7 days.
7 days.
Come for a week to leave.
And that can be combined 2 years on 14 days. You don't have to spend 7 days each year. You can combine them into every 2 years, 14 days.
So you come for a 2-week vacation and you're good.
That's it. It always depends on if you are looking for a permanent residency to live in Portugal or to own later on a second passport, at the moment a second residency. This would be the main difference between the two of them.
Right, and then that would be the golden visa to get the passport down the road.
Right. So just to be clear, to get the golden passport, there are a couple of requirements that are different options. So you could actually purchase a property for 500,000 euro, is that correct?
So now we have a big situation, which is that the real estate investment came out of the golden visa new structure. There are some different structures that we have in place through investment in funds or through investment in companies that own properties and that can be liquidated in 7 years with your property, but not directly related to property. It's not possible anymore for you to buy a property and ask a golden visa for it. Okay. So now you have to either buy a share on a company that employs 5 to 10 people, or you create your own company that employs 5 people effective over the next 3 years, or you invest in a company that already has 10 effective workers already for 3 years and you invest 500,000 on that company and you become a shareholder of the company. You can do the investment through a fund. This serves because the government has the opinion that the golden visa was inflating the property prices, especially in Lisbon.
Probably on the lower end, I would assume. There was
I would say on the lower end because the entry level for the golden visa would be 280,000 euros outside of the main cities, so in low density areas, and would be 350,000 on main cities as long as it was 30 years old or in a rehabilitational area decided by the council, which was almost the whole city.
Yeah. So would you say that, I'm just curious because it sort of, when I was reading about it, I thought it might have caused this. Say the normal price of a home or apartment or whatever was before the golden visa was like 220, and all of a sudden with the golden visa you would have people coming in and going, I need to pay 280.
Yes.
So up it goes, and a regular person is like, now
You
what
have
do I do?
situations like that have happened. On some of them, the agents would overprice the properties. On the other side, the buyers would not care about that inflation. They would not mind to pay the prime price as long as they would get the passport or they would get the residency.
Yeah.
They would do it. They would do it. But in my opinion, that was not that much as what it was shown to people or what was shown on the news. It didn't happen that much as people might think that has happened. You have situations like you have situations in all kind of scenarios. You have people that don't go per the rules, they go outside the rules. You have interest on the both sides. You have people who combine interests, and they can inflate in some situations the prices in some areas. If we look as a global, don't share that opinion. I think that's not one of the main causes. Might be a cause, of course, but it's not one of the main ones.
Would you say a lot of your clients who were doing the golden visas, if the number was 280 at the time, 280, as a guess on your part, but the 280 was like, yeah, I can handle it, no problem. I'm just going to go ahead and end up buying a 450 thing because that's what they want for their lifestyle or something.
Depends on the client if they are planning to move to Portugal with their family, or if the idea was simply to have a second residency and apply for a passport in the next 5 years and then have a safe haven for the family.
Yeah.
Depends on the clients.
Sure.
In my experience, the clients that we used to handle a lot when they were buying a property for golden visa reasons would be the client that would buy it to have a safe haven for the family, and whenever something would go wrong with the country or the world would collapse, they would come to Portugal.
Right.
That would be the main idea.
It's a plan B.
It's a plan B.
Yeah, that happens a lot
Right.
in Canada too, and particularly in Vancouver, with people who are coming from China. It's kind of almost like a bank account. They just park their money into
I would
something.
say that the golden visa was being handled that way by most of the clients that bought it.
Yeah.
Because if you at the same time want to live in Portugal, the D7 is a perfect option. You don't spend the full amount that you spend on a golden visa. You don't have to buy a property. You do have to rent an apartment and show that you have an apartment for the next 6 months and then renovate it for the next 6 months. When you do your actual renovation, you have to show a proof of income from your country of origin and that you have means to support yourself in the country. And apart from it, it's quite simple, right? But there is a mandatory rule that you have to spend 180 days in Portugal every year.
Right.
So it's two different kind of situations and two different kind of intention on the people that are applying for both situations.
Do you know what the minimum is of it's like 1,500 a month, 2,000 a month?
Actually, I don't know that information quite correctly because my specialization is golden visas.
Right.
actually.
Yeah. When I was looking online, I couldn't seem to find it either. It was like a vague number that maybe depending
If
on
I'm
the
not
office.
wrong,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just going to throw some information that I've heard, but I'm not completely sure on it. If I'm not wrong, it's 2,000 a month.
2,000, so 24,000.
24,000. If I'm not wrong, that's the number that they consider. But again, that needs to be checked by a lawyer who is more specialized in this matter than myself.
Sure. And probably the 180 days puts you within the Portugal. You're a resident for tax purposes, I would assume.
Yes. You can also apply for the NHR
Which is a lower
system,
rate.
a very lower rate of 10% for some years. I cannot specify the years, but over some good amount of years, you only pay 10% of taxes.
And that would be 10% of your worldwide income?
On that information, I'm not quite sure.
Right.
So I prefer
understand.
not to give you the wrong information on it.
No, yeah. and
We'll
that's,
try to stay in your wheelhouse.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a video separately for itself for sure, just like we did on Panama with the
is.
visas and taxes there. Yeah.
It is. So we covered a lot of information about Lisbon in particular and Cascais, if I said that right.
Yeah, much better now.
Nice.
Do you have knowledge of other areas of Portugal where expats tend to settle? So I understand Porto is
Porto is becoming quite famous right now because people like the vibe that the city provides. We also know that from when we were children that Algarve is the main location where expats would move to Portugal. Now Porto is becoming very famous as well. I would not say for retired expats, but I would say for expats who want to work in technology, or they want to start a new business, or they just want to move with the family and then travel around the world and keep the family there.
And digital nomads.
Digital nomads is quite famous. Also Madeira, which is the island that we have, is quite famous now for digital nomads at the same time. So it depends on the age factor, and it depends on how long you plan to stay here. I would say a retired expat would plan to continue his whole retirement or make a long-term plan for his retirement in the country. He would choose the Algarve, he would choose Cascais, or he would choose Lisbon at the same time.
Do you think because of the weather mainly?
In the Algarve, it's much more because of the weather and the sea environment that you have, and a very relaxed vibe that it's not the city, because the Algarve is the region that the region provides to you. Even the smell is different from Lisbon. It's a very natural smell. It's nature. You smell nature. Right. So this is one of the big factors that make people choose the Algarve. Then Cascais gives you almost the same vibe as the Algarve gives you in a very small way.
But no smell.
Some part of the smell as well. Not the same, but some smell.
Okay.
And Lisbon gives you the vibe of the city that has the sea, that has the river, that has a vibrant city. It's a European city. You have a hub that you can travel all over the world. If you want to know some other cities from Europe, you can travel on a very cheap flights. You can go on a weekend. Sometimes you can go on a Saturday and come back on a Sunday. So it gives you a lot to explore. The Algarve is quite famous for UK expats.
Lots of British when we were there, yeah.
A lot, because you have tons of flights for many areas in the UK, which in Portugal, which in Lisbon you don't even have. So the connection and the bridge between these two countries with the Algarve is very well connected. The community is quite big, and people who are expats, they tend to go to the community that they belong on. In this case, UK expats, they would go to the Algarve, Cascais, wherever they can feel more at home, having the vibe from the city that they chose.
Also a retirement vibe, which is not so much industrial and busy. It's going to be more relaxed because our people are typically not working anymore.
Yes. But at the same time, they are not dead anymore, right? So they need the vibrant city, and they need, and depends on the people itself, right? Depends on what they are used to, what they were used to, if they like it soft, if they like it on a busy city that they can see people moving all over around. So there is a lot that makes them choose between those three locations. But I would say that those three locations are the main ones.
Two last questions. Okay.
Maybe they're the same one.
Yeah, it could be the same one. Yeah. When people come here and they walk into the office and they want to buy a place, and you're going to help them and stuff, what are usually the questions or the problems that that they're going to incur is when they get here? And trying to get used to the city or the language, something that you're going to help them through. You just know it's going to happen.
The challenges that come up.
First of all, we have to understand that people are leaving a country that they know very well for a country that probably they don't know so much of it. Or if they know as a tourist, they don't know as living here.
Well, they know much more after watching all the information you're sharing.
I really hope so. But the idea is whenever we see a client that from wherever he comes from, we need to understand, first of all, what are their needs? What are they afraid of at the same time? What they are looking on the country? First of all, I think that the first question would be, what are they looking on the country? If they want to retire, if they want to work, if they want just to, they come from a very difficult country that you could not find security, so they are coming here to look for security. And if they have kids, if they don't have kids, if a lot of the questions related to the life that he was living and the life that he wants to live. I guess that's the primarily question and the area that we should focus on. Because the main idea here is to help the client make his journey as smooth as possible. So we need to understand where he comes from and where he goes to. The house is just a detail. The house serves the purpose of him changing his lifestyle or upgrading his lifestyle. So we just need to find the detail that is going to make his life the way he dreams of. So that's what we do here. We don't sell houses. That's not the main purpose. The idea is to get a client and make his journey smooth as possible.
Make his dreams come true.
I would not say dreams come true because I think that's quite hard to do it, but make his journey as smooth as possible, help him on his new life, on the country that he chose to, and make him feel safe and that he has someone to rely on. There are a lot of agents that sometimes when they see someone from the outside, and probably most of your viewers have felt it if they have tried to come to Portugal to buy something, that, you know what, this guy came from the outside, he has a lot of money, so let me make my commission here.
Right.
That's not what we do here.
Yeah. It's like a worldwide thing, pretty much. Yeah.
I would say yes. I would say yes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's not what we do here. We do help the client because we want to keep the client for life. That's how this works. Right? If I would go, and I always say it, and I would say to my agents that if you go to somewhere else because you don't feel safe in Portugal or a war happened, whatever, and you decide to move with your family to find something that you are not finding here, and if someone would scam you just because of a very small commission, would you feel like staying on that country?
No.
Yeah, absolutely not.
So that's exactly what we have to do with them here, as long as they can, so they can feel safe and love the country that they decided to live in.
We definitely feel very safe being here, walking day and night in any part of Lisbon. And I just want you to confirm that for our viewers that Lisbon and Portugal, in fact, is a very safe place to live.
It is. It is a very safe place to live. And let's be real, as any other city in the world, you have places that would be a no-go zone, right? Mm-hmm. So you have it in Portugal, not very close to the city, a bit on the suburbs and so on. But even though I would say that compared to everywhere else in the world, it's still safe. Even those areas are safe.
Yeah, it feels really safe here. And that's, if you're retiring, that's a big thing.
I think Portuguese people are quite friendly.
Very.
Yes.
Very, very friendly.
Yeah, very friendly.
They can interact with you, they can respect you, respect your language, respect the difference that we both have. Like, they know new experience, they know people that have probably different kind of experience, different kind of lifestyles, and that can also improve their lifestyle. Compared to all the other cities in Europe, I would say that Lisbon is the safest one that you would find.
Wow, the safest.
Yeah. I would say that.
Yeah, it feels that.
That's a stamp of approval.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's been great, Firkin. You've been awesome with this, and fantastic knowledge and information for people passing it on. So thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for having us, and thank you to all your viewers. Anything you need, you have us here.
And you can, well, we're going to show it on the screen later, but you can see the name right behind us.
Smith and Adams, and we will share your contact.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was a ton of information on Portugal. But let me tell you, you really need to subscribe and click that bell to be notified of new videos, because any questions you could possibly still have are going to be answered in the ones coming up. You're going to see us feature Cascais, which we talked about in this one. You'll see Porto, you'll see Faro, you will see train rides. There's so much more to see and learn about Portugal, so stay with us. And by the way, we are doing this closing in sunny Orlando. Yes, it's sunny, but you can see by the way I'm dressed, it's not that warm today. Whoa, cough, cough. Come back and see us again soon. Ooh.